This webinar is being recorded. Hello and welcome everyone to our third of 4 Rest and Sprint Try training webinars with Sharon Adams, owner of Rising Sun Fitness. Sharon?
Hi everybody, thanks for being here. So this is the third of the webinars. We're going to focus today on the bike segment of the race. So we'll just get right into the next slide with the race course. So the race course for the Rest and Try, we're going to spend just a little bit of time right here. And if you can just kind of direct your attention to the map. It's a simple course, being that it's all right-hand turns, but there are some things that you do want to kind of keep in mind. Overall, generally the course isn't too hilly or technical, all right-hand turns. There are a few rolling hills. One thing is, if you look at the map at the bottom left, so that bottom left arrow, that is going to be an uphill, and you have a sharp right-hand turn right at the top of the uphill, and we're going to be talking about this a little bit later in the webinar. So that's one of the uphill sections. It's a pretty good effort in that uphill into the straightaway on Reston Parkway. And if you go all the way to the top of the map now to that right-hand turn, that's going to be a downhill right into another kind of sharpish right-hand turn. So particularly that downhill going into the sharp turn, if it happens to be rainy that day, you're going to want to kind of notice the bike traffic around you, and just kind of make sure that you do have room and that you're, biking carefully. So those are kind of the turns. I mean, it's all right-hand turns. The only other thing I wanted to kind of spend just a second of time to look at is, and it's a little bit hard to tell on this map, but I'm going to talk you through it. Basically, if you look at where all those arrows are in the center, Lake Newport Road, that's where you're coming out of. That's your T1. You're coming out, and T2, but we're talking about T1. As you're coming out of the swim, you're going to be going up just like a very small segment of Lake Newport Road before you turn right on Reston Parkway. So kind of direct your attention to that arrow that goes towards the left, and then it takes it right onto Reston Parkway, and that's an uphill. Basically, keep in mind, especially if this is your first triathlon, you want to make sure that when you are setting your bike up in transition, that you put your bike on a small gear. So you want it on an easy gear. So that's going to be the big in the front, and small in the back for your biking. That way you have, when you clip in or when you put your feet in the pedal, however you have your bike set up for your shoes, that way you're not on a hard gear going uphill. You want to be able to push your pedals. So that's the first thing about that transition, is that you do want to have your bike in an easy gear when you're setting it up into transition, as well as, depending on when you start your race, there could be already people that have already finished their first lap, and you might be entering Reston Parkway and people are already coming around to go onto their second lap. So on that right-hand turn, you do need to be very mindful that you're making a narrow right-hand turn, that you're going to stay on the very close side until you get up to speed, and if then you need to pass people, then we'll go through that. But keep in mind, people will be already on their loops, as well as some people will be exiting at the same time that others are entering. So be very mindful at that intersection, as well as there's always sometimes people spectators trying to cross the road. So be mindful, particularly at that intersection. Okay, so pretty simple course, three loop course. Each loop is 4 miles. We're gonna move on to the next slide to talk a little bit more about actual biking. So there we go, cycling safety. Just really quick going over this, and I'm sure it's very obvious, but I'm a big safety person on the bike. Helmet, always wear your helmet. More importantly than that, it never fails to make me not laugh really, but kind of roll my eyes when I see people outside on roads, on trails, biking with their helmet on and not clipped. So fasten your helmet. If you need your helmet, if you're flying off your bike, if it's not snapped on and it's not secure on your head, it's not going to do you any good that you wore it on top of your head while you were upright. Also, I always tell people, Some people are not as bothered by not having glasses on while they're biking, but I always do urge people to have a pair of sunglasses for sunny conditions, but also clear glasses for non-sunny conditions. Because especially if it's been raining and it's wet and there's stuff that's just getting splashed up into your eyes, it can really hurt. On the right-hand side of your screen, we're going to take a minute to go through this USA Triathlon rules. So these are really important rules as well as safety. And if you're just getting into triathlon, these are things to kind of keep in mind for now and for always. They'll always be on the course, bike marshals. There will be people from USA Triathlon riding in motorcycles, and you get a penalty if you're not following these rules. But it's also just for making it fun for everybody. When you're biking, first rule there is to ride on the right-hand side of your lane. Really work to not drift to your left. If you're going to your left without passing somebody, then that's called blocking. And it forces people that are trying to pass you to go closer and closer to the center lane of the road. Please stay to the very right of your lane unless you are passing somebody. Second rule down, keep 3 bike lengths between yourself and the cyclist in front of you. So always just keep that in mind, 3 bike lengths, okay? Pass on the left of the cyclist in front, never on the right. Do not pass on the right, so always pass on the left. A rule that they have, it also is complete your pass of somebody within 15 seconds. If you can't pass somebody within 15 seconds, then that's considered blocking. And if you don't pass within 15 seconds, then back off, go 3 bike lengths behind, kind of regroup, see if you can pass again. But that is the rule. If passed, you must drop out of the 3 bike length zone to the rear of the person that just passed you. So on a crowded course, yes, it does get all sorts of confusing and stuff, but really be mindful. It makes it much more fun for everybody. I did see somebody that just put up on the chat screen about I couldn't remember if the question said if one lane is blocked, but yes, there will be traffic on the roads, but yes, the lane that you are in is blocked. So the very right-hand lane, it's not blocked, it is closed off to traffic. There will be cones, so no traffic should go into your lane, correct? So we'll go to the next slide. So bikes. This Rest and Sprint Triathlon is definitely a race that you should feel comfortable, whatever type of bike you have. If you have a bike, you can do this race. So yes, there is a huge variety of races, and it does have some implications. If you're riding a mountain bike, these are your standard mountain bikes with like fat tires. They usually have like knobby tires, some has suspension. It puts you in an upright body position. A lot of people prefer that, and it's completely fine to do this race with a mountain bike. Keep in mind, you will be much, much slower. And that's not because of not necessarily because of your fitness level, but it's just because of your bike. So it doesn't mean you can't do it though. So this might be your first triathlon. If all you have is a mountain bike, great, use it. Finish your first triathlon, get the experience in. A hybrid bike is a similar setup to a mountain bike where the handlebars are the same and you're more upright, but you can put what type of tire on it that's called road slicks, and it'll make it a little bit faster than a mountain bike. It's a little skinnier. The tires are a little skinnier. They're not as skinny as road bike tires, but it does make the skinnier the tire, the faster your bike will be. Road bikes are the skinnier tires, but this is also puts you into a little bit more forward position with the handlebars that allow you to come into what's called like the drops. So those are the handlebars that curl into that S-shaped curl with the lower levels, so you can lean further forward and be more aerodynamic. Tri-bikes are specific bikes for triathlon. If you do like a road biking race, you're not even allowed to use tri-bikes for cycling races. These have handlebars that are set up for aero positions. You shift them with a specific shifter that is set up on your aero bars. The seat position is different. The geometry of the bike is different in an attempt to create a little bit more usage of quadriceps on the bike so that it shifts more work to the quads to save your hamstrings a little bit more for the run. So any bike that you have can be used for this race. Don't feel bad if you're on a type of bike that's just slower. You can still finish your triathlon and have a great time doing it. Bikes, another question people always have about bikes. What kind of bike should I get? Oh my goodness, there's so much variety in prices, in what you're looking for, in your height, in your leg length, in your torso length. So there's really not one general recommendation, but you would need to definitely kind of go feel out some different bike stores and shops, and also kind of, before you even go, get an idea of the budget that you're willing to spend. You can get a used bike, or you can get a bike all the way up to, I mean, you can go up to $5,000 and more. So there's a huge, but you don't have to. So keep that in mind. Especially this race is open and great for everyone. So let's move on to past the bike types and go a little bit to the next slide into a little bit more of the training. For cycling training for sprint distance triathlon, a minimum that I recommend is biking twice per week. And that can mean a lot of different things. And also, I mean, this is just a general kind of recommendation, depending on if you're a beginner cyclist, a beginner triathlete, or if you have experience and you're really trying to race, then obviously your goals and your training setup might be a lot different, and it might mean a whole different type of plan. If you can't get in another cycling workout during the week, what I recommend is definitely then get in a cycling specific strength workout. And those workouts can be so well transferred over to getting benefits on the bike. So cycling specific strength, we'll go over more later, but this is anything that involves doing like a lot of squats, back core. Single leg work is really important, because you will notice when you're biking, sometimes you can even feel it. If you do have differences, hip strength, past injuries, you might have one leg that's working a little bit more efficiently than the other, and you really want to minimize that, especially for the implications that it has for the rest of your body. You want to have a steady and strong long ride scheduled, not necessarily every week, but it definitely, if you're working to build up, if this is your first race, and so if you're not quite comfortable with going out on the roads and doing a 12-mile bike ride, then that's something that you definitely want to be working up towards, and having yourself be mindfully kind of tracking, okay, I went out and did 6 miles. In 2 more weeks, I'm going to plan to do an 8-mile. I'm going to plan a 10-mile 2 weeks after that. You want to include within those 2 bike workouts per week some interval-based workouts. And also, this just makes it fun, particularly in the winter time if you are doing like an indoor cycling workout. So interval-based workouts, these can be so varied. This makes it fun. You don't have to ever repeat workouts, but then again, you can repeat them and really kind of track your progress a little bit. So interval-based workouts can be varied both in terms of the amount of intensity, and also the duration of your effort of intensity. So you might do some intervals that are really hard 30-second blasts of work, and then you might do some interval workouts that are 10 minutes at a certain intensity, and as well as varying the amount and the duration of the intensity work, you also want to vary, depending on really what you're trying to achieve with the workout, the intensity and duration of your recovery intervals. And we can go over a little bit more about that as well, but those are just kind of some general things too. If you're planning 2 workouts a week, one should definitely be an interval, and another one could be a buildup of a longer type build of distance. I do not personally recommend training on the bike course for this specific Rest and Sprint triathlon race, just because the race day, there is the lane that is blocked off for the racers. It's not like that, obviously, because it's a road during non-race day, and people are not used to these roads being taken up by cyclists. There's not a bike lane on any of the roads. So it's just not a loop that I actually recommend, but that doesn't mean there aren't other loops that are outdoors and available here in Reston or wherever you happen to be training. So keep that in mind. Let's move on to the next slide. Indoor rides, because a lot of people are not wanting to go outside and bike in the 30 and 40 degree weather that we're having right now. Keep in mind, time spent indoors on your bike trainer is what people say is always comparable to a longer session outdoors. For example, if you go in your basement or garage, wherever you have your trainer set up, for 60 minutes, Usually people kind of feel like that's equivalent to about a 75-minute outdoor training ride. Because when you're outdoors, there's always stoplights that you have to stop at. There's people walking dogs that you have to slow down for, and stuff like that. So intersections that you might have to unclip and wait for cars to go by. So it just is a consistent, smooth effort. So a lot of times that's a positive, because you can get a little bit more work done in a less amount of time. I actually should back up because I didn't put a whole lot of this in here, but I should back up and just say an indoor bike trainer is not a person that is training you. An indoor bike trainer is, in the picture that you see on the right, if you're not familiar with this, this is the piece of equipment that bike that the person in the picture is riding on, that is the back wheel is set up. So you have that device to set your bike up, and it could be in your basement, in your house somewhere, in your garage. And that way you don't actually have to go out on roads. You don't have to deal with traffic. You don't have to deal with the elements in the weather. You can get your bike workout done anywhere. When you are riding indoors on a trainer, the benefit of riding on a trainer is that you're riding on your bike. So you get comfortable with your bike setup. You get comfortable shifting, even though your terrain is not changing. You can force the shift so that you're riding on a hill workout. You can make the workout whatever it is that you need to be. Even though you're indoors on a trainer, you want to make sure that your tires are still inflated, particularly your back wheel, because it will be if it doesn't have enough air in it, it will be more likely to get a flat while it's on the trainer. You do also want to put a block under your front wheel if you're training on a trainer indoors, just so that your bike is at least level. You don't want it to be going downhill. A lot of times people will elevate it even further if they do want to do a specific hill workout, and that's fine. Obviously you want to also add in resistance by changing your gear to get the hill workout in, not just the elevation of the front wheel. While you're on your trainer, what I recommend, and this is very similar to any workout. This is swim, bike, and run. There should always be a purpose. Before you ever hop on your bike, you should know what your workout is, and you should know, why am I doing that workout? So if it's an interval and you're doing 5-minute hard efforts with 2.5-minute recoveries, you should know the purpose of that workout is a VO2 max workout. I'm working my top level energy systems for that workout. The reason I'm doing the 2.5-minute is so and so. Know why, because that makes it more likely that you will be motivated, that you will fully complete that workout. And it just makes it a lot more fun. When you're working hard on an indoor trainer, make sure you have a fan on. You will be dripping and sweating all over your bike, and cover what you can up with towels so that it doesn't get into some of the nooks and crannies and add rust in, if that's what your bike is made of and stuff. Spending time on your bike, being in the saddle, getting a feel for the way your bike is set up, as opposed to like an indoor bike at the gym, is very much preferable, just because it's not random. You're getting strong, you're working on your bike, at your bike's setup. So that is the most highly transferable way to train, to feel the most comfortable on race day. And being on a trainer is also a really great way to monitor your cadence and to really get used to having a feel for, okay, I'm right here, I'm about 80 RPM, rotations per minute. Cadence is basically, if you're new to cycle training, cadence is how many times, for example, your right foot will go around and go past the bottom of the circle for every minute. So you want to generally be training within 60 to 95 RPMs. So when you're on your bike trainer indoors, you don't have to worry about animals crossing your path, cars passing you, all this stuff. You can really be focused on what you're doing. You can count your cadence. You can still have a computer set up on your back wheel so that it pops up on a screen for you. Either way, you get to know what you're doing, and you can get to a point where you just know when you're out on the roads going flat, I'm at 85 approximately right now. So it's a really great way just to get to know your body and how much effort you're putting out. Okay, let's move on to the next slide. So for experienced cyclists, and some other ideas to add in: tempo workouts. And this is not really just for experienced cyclists. This is just to make it fun, interesting, and the most efficient and effective training for you. Tempo workouts, and you can read a little bit You can read a little bit more, later about all these different, how much effort they are. Tempo is around what you might think of as like an 8.5 out of 10 effort. Power-based training, the second one down, is if you have a power meter. So that's a lot more of an investment to get that on your bike. Hill-focused efforts, you always want to add these in for fun as well. It's just different. If you're going out and it's flat roads all the time, you're not going to feel prepared and confident going into a race that has some hills. So you want to find some hills that are local to kind of work on. Some hills might be a 30-second climb over an overpass. Some hills might be a 2 to 5 minute climb. So it will vary so much, and that's all good. It's all surprising your body. The other thing that is huge for cycling, and there is so much benefit you can get in how well you cycle by really being strong. A lot of the classes that I teach are super helpful for triathlon specific strength, because we do lots of squats, we do plyometrics, we add jumps into our squats, we hold squats, we burst out our quads, and then immediately sprint, and then immediately go into jumps. So you can really get a huge transfer from the strength that you build in your lower body, in your core. Another thing at the very bottom of this, I almost shouldn't have put it at the bottom, but it's brick workouts. Brick workouts are when you do 2 sports back to back. There's no break in between. You bike into an immediate run afterwards. So just like you're gonna do race day, you bike, you have anything that you need right there when you get off your bike, and you immediately take off to run. Also less common, but there are other types of bricks. You can do a swim to bike brick, where same thing. You get out of the pool, you go put your bike shorts on, and you go out and get on your bike and your helmet. Or you can also do swim to run brick. So if you're swimming at an indoor pool, you've already paid for that swim or whatever, you can just have your run clothes there, go over, hop on the treadmill, and get a few miles in that way. So keep those in mind. So there's a lot to really have fun kind of playing with on your training calendar and figuring out what works for you, how to fit it in. And if you are looking for help in kind of figuring out, rating like the importance of getting different workouts and how to best maximize your efficiency for your training time, feel free to reach out to me. We're gonna go to the next slide. Outdoor biking. So a lot of time right now, people will be indoors, depending on what you're comfortable with, people will be indoors until it's a lot warmer outside. Definitely at the first week in May, make sure that you are at least getting 1 outdoor ride per week. Even if you've been biking consistently all through January up until race day, you want to definitely, starting in May, get comfortable outside on your bike, get comfortable handling your bike, get comfortable grabbing a water bottle and drinking while you're biking, get comfortable looking behind you, passing people. One of the biggest things that I see in people who are newer to cycling is a lack of shifting. So where people will end up kind of really erring on the side that they stay in the same gear way past when they should. And because they're not comfortable shifting. They're not comfortable really knowing how, where, is it gonna be smooth? Is it gonna be better? So get comfortable shifting. Even have a whole workout one day in May where you go out and you shift more often than you need to. And the other thing about outdoor biking that I say, this is one of the biggest reasons I say make sure to get out once a week starting in May, is because you will be surprised at how much of a difference it uses your core, specifically your hips and your low back muscles. When you're outside, you can be consistent all through the winter. When you go outside, especially on the longer rides, or if you're adding in intensity outdoors, you will feel definitely fatigued in your back, maybe even a little bit your neck, shoulders. So keep that in mind. Definitely plan for that. Let's move on to the next slide. Bike Corman Technique. So a lot of people, might think, okay, this is a lot easier than swimming. I don't have as much to worry about. Just go. And it's true, much easier. But there are also ways to make it work for your body better, be more efficient. Relax, top thing that you can do. Relax your shoulders and neck. Some people will end up gripping hard with their hands, and that just goes right up to your shoulders and your neck, even your jaw. Remind yourself, set your watch alarm to beep every 5 minutes while you're biking a few times at the beginning of being outdoors. And when your alarm goes off, have that be just your reminder to check in. Are my shoulders relaxed? If you're tightening up your shoulders, your whole chest is tight, you can't get as much oxygen it's harder to breathe. It makes you feel like you're more in a panic. So relax, no matter how hard you're working, get used to also relaxing. Think of your spine, when you're biking, think of your spine as being long and neutral. So you want to make sure you're not rounding through the low back, rounding out your upper thoracic region of your spine. This is related to your relaxed shoulders and neck. Elbows need to be relaxed and hands relaxed for the best bike handling. So moving down to lower body, keep your knees, as much as you can, keep your knees in line with your hips and toes. And this is something, I mean, all of these form reminders are for any time, indoors or outdoors, of course. But this is one where it can be helpful. If you are cycling indoors on your trainer, set up a mirror in front of you if you don't have one, for even if it's just one of your workouts, and just check in. Similar to swimming, sometimes you'll think, oh yeah, my knees are doing fine. My toes are right where they need to be. And then once you see yourself or somebody videos you, you're like, oh my gosh, I had no idea. I'll see people, excuse me, out sometimes on the roads or trails, and they'll have their left knee just swiveling out and in, out and in. And if you think about that, you're doing that 90 times each minute. That's just going to play havoc on your knees, your hips, all the way up into your spine. When you're cycling, you want to keep a relatively still torso, not to be confused with completely still and just your legs moving. There's going to be movement. Your bike will move a little bit, but you don't need anything making drastic movements. And I put down breathing. This is relating all the way back up to that relaxed shoulders and neck. Check in. Notice if you're kind of leaning forward, if the leaning forward position is making you a little bit cramped with your breathing. It's better to be a little higher up if that means that your breath is more open and that you're going to get oxygen, easier blood flow, as well as you'll be less likely, to get a breathing cramp when you transition to the run afterwards. So keep that in mind. Those are all the little checks that you could do. Let's move on to the next slide. Cycling for strength. So just moving through this quickly, there's so much we could always, of course, go through. Form, this is a huge one though. I see this all the time. When you're doing squats, if you're going to be doing a triathlon, you should be squatting with your feet in line with your hips, which is basically pedal distance apart. So where your pedals are is the line of strength you are training. So you don't need to be doing super wide squats with your knees and toes pointing out. You want to get used to your strength, keeping your knees and toes in alignment. Other exercises, the second bullet down, squats, add in single leg squats, because effectively single leg squats and step ups are what you're doing when you're biking. As well as adding in strength training for your transition. This makes it so much easier to go from that bike to run, is adding some fast feet drills immediately after you're doing a wall squat set, immediately going from plyo lunges or plyo squats into some uphill runs, for example. So keeping all those things in mind, planks, low back exercises, just really thinking of, adding in any core work you can do will definitely transfer to swim, bike, and run. So let's move on to the next slide. So we're going to talk a little bit about the transition here. Just like I said on T1, keep it simple. So the best way to keep it simple here is by making sure you're not adding a huge amount of stuff at your transition. You shouldn't need like one of these huge bags to carry everything into. You really only have don't put a huge bath mat down, because then you're going to fill up that bath mat with all sorts of knickknacks. Put a small towel down, and then all you really need is to have the stuff that you are immediately going to be putting on for the bike. So that's going to be taking off your bike shoes, putting on your run shoes, or if you do bike with your run shoes on, you've already got them on. So keep it simple. Second bullet down is when you're in the last mile of the bike, just a helpful reminder here. Stand up, get out of the saddle a little bit, and do some low back stretches. Do some quick cat and cow stretches. Roll your shoulders, move your chin left to right, kind of reduce your arrow position a little bit, just to get a little bit more openness through your spine and get yourself used to being a little bit more open in the hips and upright. In the transition, you want to dismount before the dismount line. You're going to be coming down the hill as you come off of Reston Parkway. So you will be getting off at the bottom of a downhill. Slow down. There will be people there. They're going to be pointing to a line. They're pointing at that line because you need to be off of your bike before that line. When you get off of your bike before the line, you're just walking, running your bike up into transition. You're going to put your bike back on the rack. When you do that, be courteous to the other bikes and the other people's transition areas. You don't need to step on their sunglasses that are sitting down there. You don't need to trample on other people's stuff. Try not to jam your bike into somebody else's bike wheel if it's already there. All you need on that little towel that's down there is your run shoes, your race belt, and any energy that you're going to carry. If you're going to carry gels, or if you're going to carry blocks, if you like to wear a hat when you run, that's going to be down there also. But basically, here's your mantra. You're saying to yourself, as you get off of your bike, first of all, as you get off of your bike, before that dismount line, your helmet is still on. You keep your helmet on until you are off of your bike with both feet. Once you cross the dismount line, then you can unbuckle your helmet, start to run your bike up to the transition rack. Your mantra is shoes, grab, and go, because there's nothing else to do. Change your shoes if you need to. That's all. Grab, what I mean by grab is grab your fuel. If you're going to carry with you a gel, or if you're carrying blocks or something that you need to tuck into your swimsuit or your bike shorts, grab it, tuck it in. Grab also your race belt that has your race number attached to it, and go. You don't need to stand in place to buckle your race belt. You can be jogging while you put your race belt on, or at least walking. So remember, shoes, grab, go. That's all you have to do. It can seem so overwhelming, so just keep it simple. Shoes, grab, and go. One more, I'll talk more about this next week with the running one, but the other thing with running shoes, I highly recommend this, is make sure you have either lace locks or a specific triathlon shoe type setup, so you're not having to like bend over or sit down and like tie your shoes while your heart rate's up, while your balance is a little bit off. So have shoes that are ready to slip your foot in, cinch it tight, and go. So, I mean, I guess then it's shoes, grab, cinch it tight, and go. So that would add one more thing on. But you don't need to do a lot. I'll talk a little bit more and show you some more options next week for the run shoes for the lace locks. But you can find that, actually, I'll make sure next week to add in some resources too for where to get any of this stuff, be it local places or online, where you can get a race belt as well as lace locks for your running shoes. So thank you so much for being here. If you have other questions that I didn't get to during the webinar, feel free to email me. I hope to see you here next week.
Okay, great. And thank you, Sharon, for presenting today. And thanks to everyone who joined. This concludes today's webinar. Hope to see you next week. Bye.
Bye.